Hey everyone, Larry Chen here. We are doing continuation at Griot's Motors. Yesterday we filmed our 7-Eleven fun episode where we cruised around town with this historic Carrera Cup car. But we have Philip here to walk us through a couple more of the storage areas and also showrooms that they have here at Griot's Motors. This is quite the storage room. It almost feels like an airplane hangar.
Yeah, it's a little empty right now. We usually have more cars in here, but this is, like the initial concept. It's turned into client storage, but the initial concept was to try and keep all the parts off the ground in the actual shop, so we weren't tripping over things and everything, had a home. We have 36-foot high ceilings, so the goal at some point is to put some racks and lifts in so we can store cars vertically and then add some more capacity to our paint prep and fabrication areas. The wall over here is what we're most proud of. It's all of our long-term part storage. So every pallet up there, every bin is categorized and organized into an app. So when a client says, hey, I'm looking for my original shift boot for my 289 or whatnot, we have it in the app. We can locate where it is on the pallet rack and bring it down for him and hand it off. So we decided we wanted to organize our parts and then do it the right way. And that's how we've come to understand it.
So then what do you mean by client? So why would their parts be on this rack?
So some people want to store parts that are valuable. Some people have restored a car with us. Let's pull out. We've done extensive work to this 1984 512 BBI. Mm-hmm. It comes with parts, either parts, spares, or in some cases people want to store the tool kits and stuff like that in secure locations. So there's just spare parts. Here's a page of the contents. There's books, service documents, but in here we have a service manual, a spare ECU, the knockoff tool that goes with the wheels, the hammer for that, 2 spare hood struts, and a bag of fuses and bulbs. So this goes with his car. If he ever needs them, they're here. And we know exactly where they are.
So then this is a customer who bought a restored car from you, or?
He bought a 512T and we did restoration work to it, and he had spares and didn't want to store them in his own garage.
Understood. Okay, so it's if they don't want to store their own stuff.
Yeah.
You'll store it for them.
Yep.
Because they're a good customer.
Yep. And as we go down, you'll see that there's motors. We have motors to 930 turbos. We used to have a motor to a 935 that we actually sold. There's spares when we restore a car where they come off, and some of these are just junk that we're trying to get some direction on what the client wants to do with the car. You can see here, this is actually fully rebuilt 930 turbo motor. So it's collecting dust, but could go back into a project we have. It's a 1977 turbo that's down in storage at what we call the boneyard. And the client just doesn't want to get to it now. We have a spare 300 TD motor for a Range Rover that is going to be swapped into the Range Rover down the street.
1973 Datsun 240Z.
Those are all my spare parts for my project car. Oh, well, we actually restored another 240Z, so it could be someone else's, but probably mine.
So what are you going to do? Because it looks like you're out of storage.
Usually what we do is every year we sold off probably $125,000 in parts at the beginning of this year. Each January we go back through and we just ping our clients for what is necessary to hold on to and what needs to be sold. And in some cases they forgot they had it, they sold the car, they don't matter anymore. We sold some roof wheels, some speed lines, some Ferrari rims, which for some people, they don't remember that they have them, and they're worth, in some cases, $10,000 to $25,000. They're worth something to someone.
It's amazing to me, the variety of different things, but also this, I feel like, is more impressive than the car collection here.
This is what we do. We talked about the general process of restoration. When we pull apart a car, how we like to think about it is designing our own Lego kit. In the cabinets in the shop, when we pull out, each car has its own cabinet. And in that cabinet are all the fasteners, bolts, all the hardware. We do a full nut and bolt restoration for the majority of our cars. That means all the nuts and bolts are taken out. They are sandblasted, they're dipped, They're sent to someone in Indianapolis who replates them for us. They come back and we reorganize them by component. So all the original transmission components. So as these guys go to reassemble the car, they have all the components in front of them. They know where they go. They know in what order they go in. They know the correct size and diameter. And it has taken time out of the restoration process to do that. And it lets us focus on the things that matter, which is quality first.
Okay, so many cars. Let's just touch on the ones that stand out or that mean a lot to you. Like, how about we start with your personal 240Z?
My Z that we never get to. Yeah, so I walked past this car for probably 5 years. It was completely stock at the time. I was also pretty much a Porsche fanatic for the majority of my life, and ended up driving a completely stock 240Z and just loved the way that I sat in the car. I felt like at my height, I was actually really comfortable in it and I fit perfectly. I started reading more about 240Zs, getting on forums and looking at just the cost difference between going out and buying like a 72T and doing the same kind of, I wanted to modify something, make it my own. At the time, 240Zs were a lot more affordable. They've gone up a little bit, but this thing was rust-free, which is rare. And I contacted Dave Ribello and said, what should I put in here? What do you recommend? And we went back and forth between a 3 and a 3.2, and honestly, I probably didn't even need a 3 liter. Now that I've driven it around, it's got a ton of power. So it's in the prototype stage. I kind of like that it looks almost like a Frankenstein car because all the plating is mismatched, and we have a front valence that is a test valence, just held together with Clicos, not welded on yet, so if it's ripped off, we'll just do another one. But the whole idea was to strip all the bumpers off, all the striping, all the badging, and kind of do like an MZR, but done here. They have very high standards, but done here and stripped out, and we just haven't gotten to it because it's my car. And by the time, we're just trying to grow the business right now, but we'll get to it at some point. Last night was inspirational for me to go get my car out and drive it, but this thing is a beast. It doesn't have any mufflers on it. It has, I think, one resonator. And Forrest, who you met, and did custom headers and exhaust, and the exhaust was reported through the middle here. And so it sounds more like a V8, but it's still the inline 6.
Oh, so cool.
And
I love that.
Yeah, so he had a donor L28. I took that and
you got to get Z-Car garage brakes on it to stop it.
I think I do have. Yeah, I think I might have Silver. Is it Silverstone or?
Silver.
I bought a brake kit from them. It brakes really well. It has ground control suspension, really cool stuff. Yeah, I just have to drive it. It's got the Cobra, I think the Cup 2 Cobra seats, which I really like. I fell in love with this car. Like I think it opened my eyes to actually JDM. And after this car, I started looking into, that's when I started reading more about R34s. That's when I started reading about R32s and really getting into the JDM scene of there's an entire world that I haven't even recognized, and they're phenomenal. Just looking through the engine compartment, everything makes sense. The little light switch, just how much space you get, how much space they left you. It was a very serviceable car, very intelligently designed.
Because this honestly was designed for the US market.
Yeah.
And it's honestly such a good car. What's going on with this? What is it, LMP3?
This is actually just a storage client. So he has this car. I think he was racing it over in Asia somewhere. He was bringing it back into the US and asked if we had any space to store his car, and we do. So we get a lot of these funny inbound cars all the time where people just want us to deal with some really awesome stuff.
Jackie Chen Racing.
There you go.
So then this is part of the business with Griot Motors.
Yeah.
Where you're not restoring the cars, you're helping people sell cars, you're purchasing cars.
Yep.
And doing a little fixing and then getting them to a point where you can sell them.
Yeah.
So Griot Motors, it's a couple different things that the company does.
Yeah, the core businesses are restoration and sales. And in sales, we do have consignment, and we are a BAT partner, and so we specialize really in bringing in consignments and preparing people to sell on Bring a Trailer. We prefer to do the selling ourselves because we are specialists at doing that. And then we do buy and sell our own inventory. The goal for everything, it all comes back to how we are able to portray that car and how we're able to restore that car. And we've talked at length in some capacity, but we've got to be able to be proud about the car we're doing. The person that is doing the selling has to have the understanding that, like, hey, we're not going to hide anything if there's something wrong with the car, and you shouldn't want to. And if that's a problem, we're not, we just can't do business together. That's not me trying to come out and say there's people that do that and that's, this is the right way. This is just our way to do it. So
gotta love this livery.
Yeah,
looks good on everything.
So this goes with we used to have an MP41, which was a Jochen Mass McLaren car, and it had the Marlboro livery. And then the Senna car, MP47, came in, Senna's car, and now the Senna. So both the Senna and the 675 LT have the last 3 digits of their VINs are 477, like the VIN codes. The same MP47 for the Senna car. So it's kind of like a trifecta collection of Marlboro cars. It's, I think, our favorite cars. So obviously we like them a little bit. But
so this is part of your collection?
Yes, this is a collector car.
And then because this came from the factory like this.
This is the only 675 LT that had paint to sample Marlboro colors for that year. And actually they made it a standard option for the Senna. But we went back and forth with the MSO department and they were really excited doing this. And it was actually really difficult to determine how the actual chevron would look on the car. Just because of how much glass was on it and whatnot. But I think we did well. We didn't want any of the Marlboro writing on it. We just wanted just the rocket red, which is the color of the original red, which, if you don't know the story behind that, this is the color they had to use for it to appear like the Marlboro colors on TV, which was red. So this, like, in person is bright orange. On TV, it's red. So. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so that's how they got, if you look at a Marlboro package, it's actually white and red, not white.
Of course, yeah, but I thought this was just like a different, from somebody that is so focused on the visual aspect of a car.
Yeah.
I thought it was, hey, let's change it to make it look different in person.
Right. It was the reverse. It was, they wanted it to look white and red on TV, and the red, when they painted it white and red on the actual car, the actual Marlboro colors, it would not come through. And once they originally did that, people tended to just love the actual colorway of the Marlboro, of the bright orange and white. And even as it improved, I guess, the color saturation over time, they retained the rocket red and white, and then it ultimately went away when cigarettes became unpopular. Look into that story. It's a cool story, but it's how they made their big sponsor happy.
I had no idea. You learn something new every day. This is something that I mentioned in the last episode also. What really surprises me the most is how much you and your crew know about everything.
Yeah.
It's hard enough just to be an expert in something like the R32 or the 240Z or what air-cooled Porsches. The fact that you and your team are not afraid to dig into almost anything. I mean, like, what the heck is this doing here?
Grand Marquis. Yeah.
What?
It's,
this is like the National Lampoon.
It's kind of like the idea. It was purchased for that reason. I think it might be I'm forgetting what. I think the National Lampoon car is a Mercury, and there's a specific model of it. It's like a pea green. It's got like double stacked headlights. I don't remember the actual model, but that movie influenced me. That movie influenced the owner of this car, and they actually have a blue one too, and their wife drives a blue one. And that guy is like, he's got the dough, but they love this. And it's just funny to me, because like you see his wife driving around with 3 kids in the car, and it's just fitting and it makes sense. And I talk to a lot of people that are saying, hey, do you think classic cars are dead with EV and whatnot? And I just like, not at all, man. Like, there's so many people that are just absolutely nuts about these cars, and there's a way that these cars, they give a little bit of personality to the owner. It says something about them. They, in the watch scene, people who really like watches say like, they can tell a person's character by the watch they're wearing. Well, I can tell a little bit about someone by the way the car that they drive, the way that they have modified it, but most of them are just easy to talk to. They're fun to be around, whether they're drifting or have a lifted 4x4 or whatnot. But it's all culture, it's all character, and I love seeing people in just wild stuff.
And I'm assuming you probably feel the same way. In my lifetime, and I know in your lifetime, we're never going to stop caring about these things.
Oh, no.
We this is just in my blood. And I know it's in your blood, especially your bloodline.
Yeah.
In terms of like just absolutely doing everything you can to preserve car culture.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's awesome. And we like it all. I grew up, because I grew up at Griot's garage, working summers on the bottling line or whatnot. People that came in to detail their cars, it's all walks. It's everyone. It's, you get the Euro tuners, you get people who have a perfectly stock Porsche, or you've got the Concours guys, you got 4x4 guys. They all care about their car. And so I grew up talking to every walk of car lover and appreciating aspects of each of them. And I've stepped into a lot of different cars, and I can find little quirks about them that I think are cool. And that's enough for me to say, hey, I'm a fan of this, and I can see why you'd love it. I can see why there's an entire car club dedicated to this car. There's an entire car club dedicated to convertible Geo Metros that, they just drive around, they go like 50 miles to the gallon. They're insane. I'd never own one, but there's people that do.
So then this is something I wanted to touch on yesterday. What is your role with Griot's Motors?
Griot's Motors or Griot's Garage?
Griot's Motors.
Yeah, I own Griot's Motors. My role in owning it is to essentially, we want to grow the base of our employees. We want to attract fabricators, more techs. And part of my job is building a culture here that is, I think, rewarding to people who work for me, that educates the next generation. I think what we've been finding is, I'm 35. There's not a ton of people that have experience working on old classic cars. So we've established training programs. So a lot of it is I have to care for the next generation of car lovers, and I have to hire, employ, and train them. But I also have to grow the business in general. So half of it is letting people know that we exist and making sure that we have a fun place to work and that we do really good work for our clients. So that's my main role outside of just buying and selling cars. And
so you still have your hand in so many of the cars that you're restoring. Obviously, from the video that we filmed yesterday, you know so much about the process. I'm assuming you're probably there for a lot of the major decisions still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though you're at the top, kind of overseeing everything, you're still down in the weeds like, okay, I think we should do this process versus this process.
Yeah. Well, the process, the actual day-to-day process is up to the foreman. We discuss in a lot of cases the direction of the restoration. We discuss the client, the expectations, and a lot of the process, the incoming process is me, the foreman, and the client talking about what they need for the car, their goals, their aspirations, and my job is to make sure that those goals and aspirations are hit. The foreman's job is making sure that that is executed on, and so he's making sure that everything is going through the right process, the right plating, the right paint, and you said how do we have experience on a bunch of cars? Each one of these guys are micro experts in some domain. We want to hire and cultivate a culture where we have a bunch of different experts, where we might have a JDM expert, you might have a German BMW, Mercedes, Porsche expert, And right now we have microcosms of that. So I can't, like, as we have grown, I can't be on and in every car, but we are generally across the board, like, this is how we're going to do these cars. And then we get through to the details. And the guys on the project are the guys that are doing, like, the deep research on how to put a car back together and whatnot.
Let's talk about some of these other cars that you have here. What's going on with this?
So this is a Mangusta, a Di Tommaso Mangusta. They're pretty rare cars. I think there's only 250 or like 350 of them. It's the same family as the Pantera, a little bit sexier, but it's a Ford, I think V8. And these things are, it's the same kind of deal with Lamborghini where Ferrari fired a lot of his designers and they didn't get along with his wife. And this guy came out and redesigned, rebodied a really cool rear engine car that had a reliable American motor in it. So a lot of what we're doing on this car right now is researching the original color. Original color for this is like a bronze or like copper color. Italian, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but...
You're going to restore this stuff.
Yeah, the goal is to restore this car and probably in the next 2 to 3 years display it down at Pebble Beach. He wants it fully original. So yeah, so part of what this car is in right now is really just in the beginning stages of doing research on it, getting to the final goal before we start stripping anything away.
So then with something like this, do you have somebody on site to document the process of what it looked like originally and then mid-restoration?
Yeah, so usually what it looked like before, so we walk through those initial steps. So generally what happens is Forrest, who is my foreman, and I sit down with the client and we talk about project scope, what he wants with the car. We ask for any original photography for the car, any documentation that would show essentially like the lifespan of the car, the history of the car, what happened to the car, any previous service history, so we kind of know what's been done, what needs to be looked at, what are areas of concern for the car. We do like a very thorough inspection of the car and then give a report to the owner and say, here's what you want to do, here's what we noticed, like there's tons of rust here and there, and then we get a sign off on the project scope and we strip everything. And this car has had all the mechanicals stripped, needs the paint stripped. We're gonna find some rust, I would imagine. That's notorious for some of these. Corrosion is not a rare thing with any Italian bodied car. Yeah, from there it's really like, here was your original scope. Hopefully we were accurate in how much work we thought was gonna be done. We usually leave like a contingency of like 10 to 20%. Hopefully, we always hope to overshoot that and come in lower. Yeah, and then we just get going. And the first few months we've already made a parts list of new parts we need to order that we don't have. And then every other part that we have that is going to get restored is pulled out, photographed, documented, and then put aside with like a list of what the correct plating is, or if it's gonna be powder coated, what's gonna happen to it. And if it's gonna get plated or powder coated, it goes to the paint department. It's cleaned and processed and painted or powder coated or plated. And then it comes back to the mechanics once it's all brand new.
It's
a long process.
Yeah, it's a long process.
It's a long process.
To do it properly, it's a long process.
Yeah.
I can literally spend hours here because of how many different vehicles that are just so interesting to me. Let's talk about this blue Porsche.
Yeah, so this is like the technical, the Cup car is street legal. This is a Carrera RS. I believe there's 2,200 of them that were ever made. Maritime Blue, I think there's like 450 of them. These cars were kind of the follow-up to the 2.7 RS, which is just like a stripped down, naturally aspirated, lightweight version of a 911 C2.
This is a Japan car too.
Yeah, this came from Japan. A lot of Cup cars do come from Japan. They're usually in like mixed condition. Oftentimes they're repainted. This one was repainted in Japan, but it's lightweight. It's about 350 pounds less than a stock C2. They go through and put magnesium cup wheels on it. The hood The engine cover and the front hood are aluminum. The windows outside of the windshield are thinner glass. All the carpets are thinner. Lowered suspension, lightweight flywheel. A lot of cool things that make it like the perfect driver car. And I like them because they are just lightweight. It's not like you won't get in this car and feel like it is overpowered or that you're ever like halfway through a corner running out of talent. A very easy car to drive fast, and it feels fast because of that. And it has great handling. I really love it. These used to be like a really good deal. They're not really a good deal anymore. They've kind of doubled in value.
I think you were talking about this car yesterday.
Yeah, this car is really cool. So this is a 318 with an S14 shoehorned into it. It still has the 318 badging. It looks in every way possible a 318. It was set up by a pro car driver who we bought it from, and this car is the ultimate sleeper. I've been on backcountry drives in this thing, and I've kept up with a ton of modern cars, and it's just fun to sling around. I personally don't prefer the S14 engine in general, but this car is it actually is, like I'd rather have the M20 over the S14, to be frank, but I would prefer a lower end RPM than a high strung top end car. But this car really made me fall back in love with the S14. And I love it because nobody knows what it is.
I think it's funny because instead of making it look like an M3 clown, this individual kept everything to make it look like a 318.
Yeah.
But it just has the hot M3 motor.
Yeah.
Instead of going like inline six or whatever.
Yeah. He didn't want anyone to know.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is really special. E36 lightweight.
Yeah, there's an E36 lightweight that we did some gentle over the years of ownership. Sometimes people get some rock chips and whatnot. We did some touch up for it. Very good client, knows his stuff, like encyclopedic knowledge, likes his stuff perfect. So
it's really incredible to me how much this is worth now.
Yeah. For
it being honestly not that crazy.
Well, I remember I think there was like 3 or 6 of them that were auctioned off out of the Paul Walker collection. And they went from really not selling for much at all to all of a sudden these cars were, I mean, like out of my price range, I think personally to collect. So they're awesome cars. I've always loved them. Really cool.
What a funky car.
Yeah.
What's going on with this one?
This was just this is Richard's car. He just bought it, and we just had a client that said, hey, like I have this, I'll sell it for X, and we went back and forth and bought it, and it's just a fun car to drive around town. No, there's no goal with this thing outside of just put the top down, drive around, and I don't know, take the kids out, get some ice cream.
Yeah. Talk about attracting attention.
Yeah. No, it's one of those weird things where
It is a weird thing.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing, but it looks very cool.
What's crazy to me is I feel like this is louder in terms of appearance than this highlighter.
I know, you walk right past it, don't you?
Yeah.
The acid green GT3 Touring. So these are some of the best cars of all time. I think the 4-liter, the 991.2 Touring 4-liter GT3 is probably one of the coolest cars of all time. I like the wing delete. I like the fact that it's a 6-speed manual. I like the fact that it's a 4-liter naturally aspirated motor.
This is when I think about Griot's motors, like this scene. This is it,
the
right?
The juxtaposition between the Moke and this,
Look at this.
These are cool. This
so
is like the British golf cart. This is the Italian sleeper right here. This is a Mondial. This is the redheaded stepchild of the Ferrari family.
Right, 2+2.
No one likes them. Think they're ugly. I think most of the reason people don't like them is because it's the same Ferrari maintenance. There's no value in them. They're not the best looking car. This is the most fun you'll have driving a Ferrari, bar none. Every time people come down for driving videos and they say, hey, can we borrow a car? Can we take it out? I say, yeah, you're gonna get in the Mondial and you're gonna change your life. And they all laugh at me. They're kind of usually a little upset that I would even think to put them in this car, and they always come back with a massive smile on their face. And I think I've sold 2 people on going out and buying their own Mondials.
No way.
Yes, because it's a relatively affordable Ferrari to get into.
How much are these worth around?
I don't even know. I know we bought this one for 40 grand. And then the maintenance on it is a different thing. I think probably they're like a good one now is probably 60 to 80 grand. I haven't looked into it a lot now, but I would imagine they've moved. But it's just, you're more upright. Most of the Ferraris of this era, for someone who's tall like me, hard to get in and out of, hard to see out of. You don't really have like a good ergonomic position. This is a very accessible car. Very easy to get around. Where the shift, it's still got the gated Ferrari shifter, and it's a transverse V8. Sounds outstanding and very torquey, fun to drive. So that's my spiel. I love that we like weird things. I guess you could say that, but it's a cool car. It's not gonna bring any ladies to your front door, but might even deter them.
What's going on with this?
This is actually a SEMA car that was built by another shop.
Oh.
They do great work, J-Rod Customs. But this is a custom car Richard built for SEMA Cherokee Chief, detuned LS3, incredible paint job. Yeah, I mean, take a peek around it. Every once in a while, Richard goes out and does like a fully custom piece of art like this, and he's got the ESO up to, I think that actually went to Monterey. So a lot of cars aren't here because they're going to be driven next week or raced next week. But I have the crappier version of this that is completely unrestored. But they're fun cars, and this is kind of what we're talking about when we say people are coming back to some cars around on the outside that aren't that you wouldn't normally see very often.
Right. This is something that, and just like the Rabbits and the Golfs, they're used for their utility.
Yeah.
And you just didn't think that at one point they would be worth anything, really? Because I'm assuming something like this at one point was probably worth $500, you know?
Yeah, and you probably could have bought them for like $500 6 years ago. Like a 78, I think these were made between 68 and 78. Shared the same chassis as the Grand Wagoneer. I mean, this is probably $8,000 to $20,000 car in pretty decent condition, maybe a little bit more than that. And a Grand Wagoneer in really good condition is probably between $30,000 and $60,000, depending on the condition. But they're coming back. You know, back in the era, these were the Grand Wagoneer and the Cherokee Chief were some of the nicest cars, some of the nicest SUVs you could buy in the US. They didn't have a lot of competition. It was this or a Range Rover or like a Chevy truck, Bronco, whatever. Like you didn't have, now everyone makes an SUV, including Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, and everything like that. So if you want to go back and, you know, back in time and you want to buy like in late 60s, early 70s SUV, you don't have a lot of options. Yeah. So we liked wagons.
Can I just point out the fact that this is how I know you guys are serious.
We got a lot of stuff.
A drum of brake fluid.
Drums of brake fluid, oil, so yeah.
What the heck? I've never seen so much brake fluid. How long is it gonna take for you to go through all that brake fluid?
You know, that's a good question for Forrest, the foreman, but I just pay the bill. But, you know, I don't know.
It's funny because I hope this is not lost on you at how interesting this is. You know, we have like maybe 2 quarts.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
You know, at our shop. To have this much, I don't think I'll go through this much brake fluid in my lifetime.
I remember the conversation where we were saying, like, you know, it's just cheaper to buy a giant drum of it for the amount that we're using, and we just changed the process. So now we get pallets. We have pallets of diesel fuel as well for a client who likes that. And we have like you'll see if we go outside, there's like a more flammable liquid storage out there where we keep everything else. For some cars, you need more specialized lubricants and whatnot. And yeah, I think we were talking to a guy in England who had a special Williams racing engine, and you could only get the oil for that motor in the UK. So even if we were to order small quarts of it, we can get it same day. It doesn't matter, but it's just easier to keep it all on hand in bulk. So this car, that's like the most beat. It's a 1984, so this is when they're still, this is a 200 TD. It's like the slowest Range Rover that money can buy outside of the series 1, 2, and 3s. This is my car. I like the patina. I have gone from liking Concours paint jobs to actually liking kind of like a soulful patinaed car. All the patina is gonna stay on the car. I have a 300 TD that I'm gonna swap into it. I just rolled this in like 3 weeks ago, and like one tire has already gone flat, and it's leaking oil from every orifice possible.
Are you gonna leave this decal on? Because that's
everything's
super cool.
staying on. So the only thing I'm gonna try and remove, even though it's gonna leave some spot, I want to see if I can't remove all of these decals, which is definitely gonna reveal some more clear paint, which is probably not a great idea. But I've got 2 kids now, so I've gone a little bit away from driving a Porsche or driving like a performance vehicle to how can I get my 2 kids into a classic car that's cool, has some character to it, and that maybe I can hand over to them when they're older. This is a great car for the Pacific Northwest. It's gonna rot, it's gonna rust, but we have a shop that can take care of a lot of those things. So if you're gonna buy a Defender, an old one, buy it out of Portugal or Spain. That's where they're, Italy as well, but that's where they're kind of rust-free. Most of these cars, the problems with it is rust. Like I said, we have a spare motor. It's a 300 TD. I'm gonna swap it in. Goal for this car is to finish it, of course, and then go on a road trip with my dad, Patagonia, up through Latin America, and then finish like an overland trip with my kids, with my dad, and try and document that in some way. But
love that.
Yeah.
Sounds like an incredible trip.
Yeah, it's a 280 SL with a shoehorned V8 in it. These things are generally inline 6s. We did some minor touch-up work. It took a lot to actually fit we either rejigger the engine mounts and whatnot. It actually fit pretty snugly once we got that all figured out. Kind of resculpted the front bumper there, which is chrome now. Built a bigger fuel tank, which then is hidden behind the license plate here. On the originals, they have like a big, ugly fuel tube that comes out, and the client didn't like that, so we essentially concealed it behind the license plate, so you would never have to see it. So it's a 280 SL that the guy wanted to make into something with a little bit more pep in the step and a little bit more fun to drive around. This actually has a concealed radio. This radio is made to look like an original Mercedes radio. It actually connects to your Bluetooth. It's all controlled by a hidden sensor in there, so they can listen to that. We've concealed seat heaters in it, and there's speakers that are also concealed throughout the car. But that's what we try and do. We try to, if they don't want it original, we try and make everything look as original as possible.
This is pretty cool.
Yeah, we had a friend who actually passed away, and he liked doing kind of the same style where he would always be building some custom X, Y, and Z with a ton of power. And he liked having sleepers that didn't look like they were fast. This thing has around 950 horsepower. But his goal, there's a highway here called 18. His favorite thing was to have a sleeper car that no one would really know how much power was on it and just absolutely flog them. And the guy was actually a really interesting person. He raced Porsche 956s, 962s. I think he got second in Sebring one year. Really talented driver and really cool guy, and just like to build like really awesome cars.
Could you imagine just this blowing the doors off of whatever car you pulled up in? Hellcat,
there's actually
Z06, whatever. This having 900 horsepower just blows the doors off of everything.
My brother broke it loose in our parking lot and dug a hole in our asphalt and just burned out. And that's what this thing likes to do. It's one of my favorite cars. It takes race fuel. Like, you can't run it on anything under like 98 octane.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the rat poop car. So this car was sent to us from a client in New York, and we found some dead rats and rat poop in it. He was driven around in it when he was a kid. He wants to restore it, but it's been a difficult communication for us back and forth.
This parking thing expired in 1986.
Yeah. So this car has probably sat there since 1986 because, like what we found in this car and what we have quoted him out for it's a lot of work.
There's an interesting smell coming from this thing.
Yeah, this is probably a car that we won't do, but it's something, like we'll look at anything if they're a good client, and unfortunately this probably is being sent back.
So are you looking for more help to be able to handle more projects?
Always. I mean, we'll take any resume. Obviously we'd love more fabricators, more mechanics, like upholsterers, painters, engine builders. We're growing, and we always have a lot of work to get to if we could get to it. And there's two different hires that we have. We have like really qualified technicians that are good at that role. And then we also have a very good apprenticeship program where we bring in a shop assistant, which is actually an open position right now. He just moved to Germany, our last shop assistant, who is very good. And we put them through all of our basic training for like basic welding and fabrication, basic painting, paint prep, preparing parts for our paint facility, and basic mechanical. And what we ultimately try and push them to do is pick a specialization, and then we inevitably give them a role in that department, and they just work their way up into seniority. And our head painter right now was someone who came out of a tech school, who we put on a stool in a very qualified painter's paint facility here, who was just fascinated by paint, learned everything, worked his way up, and now he's like an excellent painter in our facility, and everything goes through him.
That sounds honestly like the best opportunity to get in this industry.
Yeah.
Honestly, it sounds like a dream job.
It's fun. Yeah.
So if you guys are interested,
we are hiring.
Yeah, hit up Philip here at Griot Motors.